Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Toni Holbein, CEO and co-founder at Growblocks, to the show today. Toni, welcome.
Thanks, Ben, for having me, and hi, everyone.
Hello. Well, thanks for being here. Let's dive right in. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yes. So I think my background starts like 10 years in SaaS, really working kind of in this industry, always software. And I didn't know it back then, but what I was doing in the very early beginning is actually called revenue operations, right? I kind of did some sales operations. Then there were a couple of other teams that wanted to Toni as well. And I basically started like, hey, we should be all working together. That doesn't make sense that everyone reports to their silo leaders. So kind of we combined the whole thing and made it revenue operations. I did that for a really long time, spent some time actually in the US, built the US office as well for 3 years, and accumulated a couple of more teams in the process. And then, I don't know, suddenly became CRO of the organization. And I think we were at like 15 million AR at the point of time where I kind of took over. And when I left as a CRO, this was then after the exit, and, a little bit into this was around 50 million. Then I jumped into, the next opportunity, also in. By the way, I'm from Denmark, Copenhagen, right? So it's kind of that's where I'm from here right now. Was another SaaS play, a little bit different industry, different segment. But within 18 months, we actually were also able to exit that thing, right? And in both cases, CRO, in both cases, the full spectrum, so marketing, sales, CS, revenue operations globally, actually, and really, and this is, almost the lead into then what I'm doing now, Growblocks, founding this. Really, this is a way of, me taking my revenue ops background that I apply to the CRO job, very data-driven, very analytical, very, numbers and stuff, and trying to build this into a product to help other folks get better and, growing their revenue, right? So, maybe you kind of have a different frame around this in a second, but that is kind of the continuation of that story, if you will.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Your experience in revenue operations, maybe before it was called RevOps, yes. now founding Growblocks. So yeah, let's take a moment. Tell us about the products and services that Growblocks offers.
Yeah. So I think the way we kind of got to this point was actually the realization that in order to be data driven around your go-to-market, you will end up relying on a couple of different awkward tools that need to stitch together in a nice way, right? And one obviously is going to be Excel spreadsheets. You will have your modeling there. You will have your understanding. Hey, this is how my funnel looks like, and you need to build this thing out, right? And this really then for us back in the day came after the realization that it's not just account executives times quota, equals your revenue plan. There's some more stuff to it, right? So you have your Excel spreadsheet, then you take some of that stuff, put it into your BI. You want to track it there. You want to monitor it there. You want to see where you're going off potentially. And then at the end of the day, you're going to put it into slides because, your VP of sales never logs into Looker. And the only thing that he or she sees is this, 6x19 or 9x16. I always mix it up, slide formats, other dashboards and so forth, right? And we're kind of looking at this whole market and we realized, hey, wait a minute, FP&A kind of solved that for the finance function, right? Spreadsheets, budgets in spreadsheets. Every CFO feels super at home in a spreadsheet. Then obviously you want some more governance around it, some more dashboards, and then you want to push it out into the board deck. FP&A does that really well. What we found out is that FP&A is not so great at, and maybe this is to a degree because I'm not fully educated, is actually modeling the funnel, kind of, modeling your P&L and your cash flow and all of that stuff. Great. But modeling your go-to-market, not so great. And basically kind of then the realization was like, okay, wait a minute. If there's such a massive market for FP&A on the finance side, taking this away from spreadsheets into, a proper format, then there must be the same for revenue actually. And, this is in a nutshell, what we are delivering to our customers.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, because I came up through the ranks of FP&A, and you see at larger orgs, you'll have dedicated FP&A resources just towards that sales and marketing function where they might dive into that. But other places, maybe no FP&A or one FP&A resource. And yeah, they don't have the time to dig into your lead funnel, your pipeline funnel, and crunch all that pipeline data.
No, absolutely. And I think it's, whether you put it under revenue operations, sometimes then it's called, revenue strategy, or if it's a commercially minded FP&A person, at the end of the day, the tools that those folks are going to be using is an Excel spreadsheet, right? And especially, and now kind of overlaying this between revenue and finance, so the commercial part and the finance part, CFOs feeling at home in spreadsheets, right? So it's also, and I'm joking about it, but I do mean it seriously. This is also the reason why FP&A tools do feel and smell like a spreadsheet. Many cases, right? You see those boxes and stuff. That's what people want to expect. But if you look into the average commercial leader, they don't actually feel at home in spreadsheets. The typical thing is, VP sales, VP marketing, CRO, they're not going to log into your spreadsheet, into your big model with the different sheets that you have there and get anything out of it. Very much, opposed to a CFO actually. And wouldn't you want to have those folks actually in there? Wouldn't you want to have them understand the model, see what they can tweak, and see what maybe has an impact, and actually use that tool instead of having that being filtered through your RevOps analysts and your FP&A folks, which I don't want to take away from that, but basically kind of there is a bit of lost in translation, right? And that is actually kind of a gap that we think is existing kind of in a lot of places, by the way, and is taking some away from your revenue potential.
So is the use case here, if we're using a CRM system, we have a lot of data in the CRM system, pipeline opportunities, leads. Is it analyzing that data and forecasting? Is it more on the forecasting piece? Tell me a little bit more about how, say, a VP of sales would use this, and then how a CFO would interact with this tool.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're taking the full revenue engine, and for us that means everything between traffic and churn. So the whole thing. So it's not only around opportunity forecasting or something like that. It's the whole thing. We're modeling out your complete revenue engine. We're pulling that from your whole go-to-market stack. It might be Google Analytics, it might be Marketo, it might be Salesforce, it might be ChargeBeat, whatever. And then, we're basically allowing you to slice and dice that into your different segments, your different markets, your different inbound, outbound, all of those different motions. And the reason why you want to slice and dice it like this is because the buying behavior is just different, right? And inbound in the US will smell and behave differently than an outbound that you're doing maybe in the German-speaking region, right? And having that complexity level and that level of detail is pretty important, because the more granular you go, the more accountability you can drive with those people leading those go-to-market functions, right? Because otherwise you sometimes have this, this target wasn't right to begin with anyway, kind of those conversations. And, I'm really comped on my comp plan, and there's a revenue number in there. And basically kind of building this out, making this clearer and more succinct for everyone in go-to-market, right? That's actually how we're kind of going about it. Sorry, I think you have a question there.
Yeah, modeling your entire revenue engine. So from top of that funnel, whether it's website traffic, leads, where that's coming from, modeling it from really, you're saying start to finish, to then revenue coming in the door, it sounds like, and then enhancing the understanding of that, and enhancing what's happening in the entire revenue engine. And of course, making sure our quarter commit number is accurate, it sounds like, as well.
No, and I mean, so this is one piece, right? And then what you can use this thing for is basically, very, very strong data-driven bottom-up revenue planning, right? So really not, it will be guided by where are we going? Sure, kind of there's a top-down component to it, right? But it's also, okay, what are the things we actually will be doing? We will be hiring some people, we will execute some projects, we will have some campaigns. Those are all the things you will be doing, and running it through the revenue engine then, ideally gives you a very clear picture, where are you going to end up from the bottom up, right? And once you have built something like that, you're basically creating an extremely tangible benchmark for your organization when you then go through that year, right? It will be very clear, since everything is mapped out, there's a target for everything. It will be very clear where something is going off track. So you immediately understand, okay, there is, MQL conversion to op or something like that. It's down in North America. Why is that? Who owns that? Joe owns that. Okay, Joe, tell me, why is that dropping? Oh, it's because we suddenly put in the white papers into the MQL, whatever it's going to be, right? And then instead of looking at this at the QBR, looking back and, doing an autopsy on the corpse, so to speak, you basically kind of see immediately, hey, this is popping up while it's happening. And we can jump on it and we can course correct immediately, right? And having that visibility, having that, sometimes we say this digital twin of your revenue engine, and being able to share that and poke at it and try and test and see and create accountability and transparency around that helps you to be simply, at the end of the day, sure, it helps you to be probably hit your revenue targets in a more confident fashion, but it also helps you to be quite a bit more efficient, right? So understanding where something is going wrong, not having that waste that you otherwise see in the GTM happen actually, and kind of jump on it and course correct.
And yeah, appreciate that explanation. One more product question here. So who's the champion of this? Does it sit in sales? Does sales own this application? Is it joint with the CFO? Who actually is the champion of the product?
The champion of the product is revenue operations.
RevOps, okay.
And we see that the one person that is the main beneficiary is the CRO. It's usually not the person owning one silo, but it's owning the revenue engine end to end. I think coming out of this, then the secondary beneficiary are the different silo leaders that have clarity on what are my targets specifically, how do the dots connect, especially for marketing, how does that actually kind of work down funnel and so forth. But it's really for revenue operations to own and manage and set up, and for the CRO to sleep a little bit better at night.
Yeah. So definitely, the CFOs probably listening would endorse a product like this. So important to have visibility into the revenue engine. So, what year did you found Growblocks?
We founded it in 2021. So
2021.
We've been operating for 1.5 years now. We did our pre-seed in October 21. That's right.
Okay. And then where are you guys located? Do you have a headquarters, or are you remote?
No, we're here. So we're kind of a modern organization, but we basically chose because I guess most of us are old school. We have an office here downtown Copenhagen. It's wonderful besides the weather. And we basically have 80%, 90% of our staff is in the office, or it's like a very loose work from home kind of policy. And then we have a small handful of folks that are located outside of Denmark. Okay.
And then what's your current team size?
We have 30 people. Now we're kind of still early on, small team working on this thing.
Okay. And then anything you want to share around your revenue range or ARR range right now?
We're before $1 million.
Okay.
Right. So we're still sub $1 million. That's kind of the range that we're kind of at.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, tell me, it's interesting a little bit about your go-to-market motion, because you're selling into sales. So how does your go-to-market work? Is it outbound? Is it SEO inbound? Tell us a little about how you're finding these RevOps leaders.
No, absolutely. So I think the first realization is when you are building something that is, no one is Googling revenue engine or managing it or looking for that specific thing, right? So Google ads out the window, you can't use that. So what are you going to do next? Well, you're going to turn to more demand generation tactics, which really are, in this case, educational for revenue operations leaders. That's how we get a lot of leads. I've got a lot of eyeballs also on us. And then the other piece is good old outbound, calling into organizations and doing that. And it's, if you do it right, I mean, it is a demand gen function, right? Kind of going out of the organization and tapping someone on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, don't you have that problem? And haven't you been thinking if there's a solution for that?" And obviously, once we get to this wonderful land of there's a category and it's established, and people are like, "Hey, you really need to manage your revenue engine better because of those wonderful reasons." Then you will start seeing people going on Google and either putting in Growblocks.com or putting in, whatever we're going to end up calling this category, and then you start having some more inbound around it, right? And I think the last bit, because we're very much on the educational end, which means we're producing a lot of high quality content. We're also obviously then putting this on our blog, and then Google indexes, and we get some organic coming from this. But it's not the main point, right? We have a podcast, the revenue formula. Happy to everyone, jump on that if you wanted to. It's geared towards RevOps and CROs actually. But this is the kind of this is our kind of go-to-market motion, right?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. And so you recently raised a seed round. How much capital have you raised to date now?
It was 8 million, a bit more than 8 million euros.
8 million euros. And it looks like that seed round was 6 million euros.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
And so what, with 8 million raised in a 6 million euro seed round, what were the triggers or milestones that led you to that raise? Did you see something? Did you see traction, product market fit, that said, "Hey, we're ready to raise 6 million in seed"?
So I don't think product market fit is the right word yet. I mean, we're not at the million mark, which is kind of from externals usually seen as, you know, a very strong sign for PMF. But what we did see is we basically started selling from day one, right? Kind of we founded the organization, and then we had our first customer even before we were incorporated, actually, at that point. And the way we delivered to them was, I mean, with spreadsheets and slides. You know, that's we took this old way of doing it, and we're basically kind of proving out the point, right? Are people interested in this? Is this an issue for organization? Are they willing to pay money for that? And we got a lot of yeses there. We also got a lot of no's as well, because it takes some while to explain and make people understand, you know, how that is actually pretty crucial. And we saw, you know, quite some good traction on that. We started to figure out the most difficult problems engineering wise to set something like this up, because it's basically you're basically creating a modeling engine, right, which can be very, very complex and difficult, and you need to keep it performant and so forth. And then we're basically kind of at the point where, hey, I think there is something here. And this is not a, you know, for European standards, it's a large seed round actually, right? So other folks are raising kind of an A on the same amount. And I don't say that with glee. I say that with fear, you know. The expectations are just sitting somewhere else. And basically our realization was like, hey, this is heavy enterprise software. We will need to add a lot of more engineering to kind of get this to the point where this is really valuable. And this is where, by the way, most of our funding is also going is into product, right? Building out the product. Our sales and marketing function are in infancy, you know, if you will. And that's that realization then kind of brought it home for us to, hey, we need some more capital here, right? And really the next milestone now is to prove product market fit, to have a proper product, which we actually launched 2 months ago alongside with the funding announcement. That's, you know, that was the idea kind of. You know, as we get more folks on the product, that then is product market fit, right? And then the next step on that was obviously, okay, product market fit achieved, great, but we are in good old boring Europe. This game is going to be won stateside for sure, right? So then the next step really is raise an A to, you know, this typical boots on the ground in the US, and then kind of you know, conquer that market, right? So that's I think the roadmap, and that's how you need to think about it, I believe, especially when you're trying to sell to RevOps and CROs, which is still a new thing in Europe. It's really the home turf, the home market needs to be the US.
Yeah, I like that progression in the company. And with the 8 million euros raised to date and the 6 million seed round, any fundraising lessons that you'd like to share with other SaaS founders from that recent raise?
Yeah. Well, you need to be lucky with timing. We actually raised the seed in June 22. And basically the conversation in the board was, we announced it recently, but we raised it a little bit earlier. The conversation in the board was that we as an organization reached a local maximum of traction and how it felt and the story we could tell. And we had the conversation that the market isn't at a local minimum or at a minimum, you know, let's see about that just yet, right? So that was kind of the consideration there. And we then went out to raise because, you know, was it David Sachs said like, hey, you know, this is going to be for a while, you know, raise 24 months. So that's how we set this up. We knew we wanted 6 million because, I mean, some of that stuff is silly, obviously, right? You have 2 million, then needs to be 6 the next time. But the other piece is then also, okay, the plan we put forward was not, okay, let's jump to 50, 60 people and burn through this in 12 months. The plan we set forward was, let's build something that carries us throughout 24 months. And that's kind of how we went about that. I don't think I can give great funding advice in this current environment right now. I think it's really tough. I recently saw a chart that basically showed that overall valuations isn't down. It's only 10% down, but overall volume is down. And I'm like, but wait a minute, guys. I mean, that does mean valuations are down because the top percentile, you know, only gets funded now, and their valuations are deflated. And the bottom percentile basically is out. They don't get funded, right? So in the end, you do have a deflation of valuations here. And navigating that, if you have the luxury, is try not go to the market. But I don't think this adds any value to anyone listening here.
Yeah, so I like that philosophy that, when you're thinking about the seed, that really thinking about a sustainable plan, not just burn through that really fast, but at least have something sustainable where you can kind of control your destiny a bit, until that next raise. So
Yeah,
yeah, that makes a
absolutely.
lot of sense. And what, as a founder right now and where you are in your business, what metric or number do you just love that you love to manage with?
So this is maybe my RevOps pass, but or maybe it's not. I'm not sure. It's opportunities created. It's very, it's not. I try and not look at burn, otherwise I will not be able to sleep at night. I obviously have an expectation on where we need to land in ARR, but this, we're still at the early stage. It happens, every other week or every week or something like this. What can happen daily, and this is something that I just love managing through, is like a daily stuff that happens, on the day to day, is opportunity creation, right? You can create a new deal every day, and that then also gives you the opportunity to drive. I don't want to say pressure and accountability, but to drive expectations in the organization. Hey, we haven't created much, the last 2 days. When are we catching up on that, right? And you can't really have that conversation when it's about deals closed. It's like, forecast and we're the vendor of choice, but it's going to take, you can't really have a good conversation around that. That is proactive in that sense. And that's why I love, opportunity creation. That's probably my top metric.
Okay, I love that. So qualified opportunity creation. So Toni, really appreciate your time. Of course, they've got to be qualified. Just can't create any opportunity out there. So appreciate your time today and sharing your story. So what's next for Growblocks that's coming up that's new and exciting?
Well, I think we're generally very exciting, kind of to begin with. I think what we kind of built in step one is really an awesome place for revenue operations to go and see the funnel end to end, build this thing out and track everything. Our next step is actually to add analytics layer on top, right? Right now it's very RevOpsy and detailed and maybe, not for senior folks, but really the next step is to have a piece of analytics on there, kind of using the data that we already have, displaying that, adding your projection, adding your target line, to basically kind of escape this BI situation where you have documented everything really nicely up until today, but there's very little about, the future, right? And kind of adding that on top, I think will give another way of folks interacting and dealing with the revenue management.
Yeah, makes sense. So exciting time in revenue operations. So Toni, really appreciate your time today. So if listeners would like to learn more about Growblocks, where should we send them online?
Go to growblocks.com. And then the resources, you will see, our podcast set up. We have a go-to-market live happening every other week. We have a revenue newsletter that you can sign up with, and obviously you can watch the demo. We have a video online, or you can request a demo. That's how you learn a lot about it. And obviously, last thing, you can hit me up on LinkedIn and either follow me or connect. Happy to do either.
Well, sounds great. So if you'd like to learn more, check out growblocks.com. And Toni, really appreciate you sharing your background and your story today.
Thank you, Ben, for having me.